Hey, it's Natasha.
And Khalil.
We are the co-hosts of
Woke and Free.
Thank you for tuning in to our 68th episode of Woke and Free. If you've been tuning in every week for Woke and Free Wednesday, you know that Woke and Free is all about being real and honest with each other and you. We talk about everything and anything that's important to us, to you, the world, and nothing is off the table. In this episode, we're talking all about whether the death penalty is right or wrong. Pretty deep stuff, guys. But before we go there, have a couple of questions to ask you. First, have you subscribed to Woke and Free on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio? Guys, we're on over 22 different platforms. Please subscribe to the show and show your support. We greatly appreciate it. Next, have you shared an episode? If not, this is definitely the episode to share. So share away. Next, have you hollered at us on social media? We'd love to hear what your thoughts are about the show. If you have ideas, please feel free to contact us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or even YouTube at Woke and Free. And then lastly, have you reviewed any of our episodes? If not, please choose any of the platforms we're on. And where will you find that? wokeandfree.com, and review away.
Each week we like to share a little bit about us before we dive into the topic for the episode. Last week we shared, do you prefer comfortable shoes over stylish shoes? This week we're sharing, when it comes to musical prowess, would you prefer an amazing voice or the ability to play any instrument?
Oh, that's an interesting quandary. So the inner, Whitney Houston in me is fabulous voice always, but then my loudest inside of me is any instrument's kind of cool, and that means you could make more money doing many different things. So my heart would say go with the singing, but my mind and my wallet would probably say play any instrument. How about you?
I definitely go with the instrument because you can be your own band. That's
Exactly.
just amazing.
Yep. Excellent.
So you can make a full song on your own. You don't need anybody's help.
That's
and
true.
you can struggle with singing, but at least you got the instruments down.
Like some artists we know. No shade, guys. No shade.
Yeah, but playing an instrument, that's just, you can't fake that. I guess you just have to have if you just like electronic doing it, simulating it, but
Yep.
I'd rather be able to play it because you can play it live anywhere.
True.
And you could join anybody else's band too. So there you go. So look
You're
at that.
all about that bandwagon right now.
Yeah, it's really nice. You have a lot of different ways you can go. You open yourself up to a lot of stuff with that. That's amazing.
Now we're going to swing this pendulum a whole different direction. And we're going to start out nice and heavy. So what is the history of the death penalty in the great all-American USA?
Yeah, if we're just going to take it back to the U.S., let's go and refer to this site. It's called penaltyinfo.org. And they first said that the first recorded execution in the new colonies was actually that of Captain George Kendall in Jamestown Colony of Virginia in 1608. Kendall was actually executed for being a spy from Spain. And in 1612, actually, the Virginian governor, Sir Thomas Dale, enacted this Divine Moral and Martial Laws Act, I guess, which provided the death penalty for even small offenses such as stealing grapes, killing chickens, and trading with Indians. The death penalty was passed down for just doing little acts. It's a little different now, but we'll go through another big milestone. In 1846, Michigan became the first state to actually abolish the death penalty for all crimes except for treason. Later, Rhode Island and Wisconsin abolished the death penalty for all crimes. By the end of the century, the world would actually see even the countries of Venezuela, Portugal, Netherlands, Costa Rica, Brazil, and Ecuador all get rid of death penalty. And then another thing that happened, I guess, that I thought was kind of major was that the mandatory capital punishment laws had been abolished in the U.S. by 1963, because at a certain time, capital punishment was kind of that was the only punishment. There was nothing else that they could do. They would just punish if you committed a serious crime, as they would call it, you would get the death penalty, but that was abolished by 1963.
Gotcha. Interesting. All right. So we're schooling them, guys, because it is Woke and Free. A little bit of extra info. So the history of the death penalty in America, pretty much the capital punishment, as you talked about, is the other term. When people talk about death penalty, they're talking about capital punishment, which is the legal execution of a criminal, just so everyone understands. And the word capital comes from the Latin word for head.
Wow.
So in ancient times, capital punishment was often carried out by beheading. And then this method was never used in America. Instead, we were kinder by shooting people to death, hanging them, electrocuting them, using poison gas, or lethal injection. So you see the humor in what I'm saying. That's not kinder. That's just a different type of torture. But, today all states with the death penalty use the lethal injection method. And then some states, however, allow one of these other methods as an option. You mentioned...
That's what I thought. I thought the electric chair is still around in a couple of states,
The electric chair is still around, yep. And yet, as you said, it started back in the 1600s here in America when they started taking place in the colonies. And then, if you really want to know more on, the Supreme Court and kind of the different laws that have gone back and forth with this, you definitely should go to wokenfree.com. There's a really cool article by crfusa.org that really details that if you're looking for the legal breakdown history of the death penalty. But I think in summation, really, it's a method that has been seen as a viable way of punishment, and I think that's what we're really here to talk about, whether that's correct, not correct, and our thoughts and issues with this.
And it's good to mention, I should have mentioned the very beginning at the start, is this comes down from British, the mother country.
Indeed.
These colonists came from Britain, and the death penalty was there, so they just brought it on over with them.
Good old
the same
Brits.
Thing.
Yes. Kill them. Well, off with your head, right?
That's a real
exactly.
thing. But I thought off with your head was set in the Americas.
Isn't that from the
what is that from?
The king who didn't he have many wives or something?
All right,
yeah.
You're right. All right, I got it confused.
Or not a king. Well, actually.
Yeah, the king said it to
it was
the
before
subjects,
they,
right?
but before they had the Queen of England, though. Yeah, because now there's.
Well, there was always when there was a king of England, there was a Queen of England, but. Now it's different. I don't think do you technically have a king of England?
No, we only have the
queen. You don't have that, right? Yeah. But there was a time when it was the king and queen. There's always been a queen,
That's
though.
True.
It's not like you were going to think that it didn't exist. But the queen was there, but I guess it was a different significance.
True.
Now, what are some reasons to support the death penalty?
So this is kind of an article I found on amnesty.org.au that has kind of, I think... I don't want to say it's satire, but it's things that people say, but I mean that you can just hear the irony that comes out of it. So there's 5 things. We'll go through them. We need to be tough on crime. Is the death penalty really tough on crime?
It's on crime specifically. So crime won't pay, right? It's teaching crime a lesson. You take that, crime.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it seems like
what does that mean?
A crime against criminals and alleged criminals, not even verifiable criminals.
Yeah, that's another thing. But that's funny. It's I'm going to get you crime by being tough on you by committing a crime against you.
Yep, exactly.
Crime on crime.
And, they did the crime, so they should do the time. So again, verifying that there are certain crimes that are so egregious in nature that they deserve to be beheading, essentially taking someone's life.
Well, taking someone's life, yeah.
I don't know about all that. The criminal justice system is fair.
Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be?
I mean, yeah, because rainbows and unicorns exist as well, so absolutely.
Because people know that when you're in the legal system, you've got to have a straight head, and you can't bring any of your biases in.
Of course, and you always have a jury that represents you and the world you live in. And
judges always have a good day. They don't bring their emotions to court.
And also, every lawyer operating in the system is really given the time and energy and resources to do their job well. Guys,
so that means that every criminal prosecuted and convicted is actually guilty of the crime.
Yes, and also convicted on the same level. 2 people of different backgrounds are convicted the same way as well. Yeah.
Same punishment as well.
Yes, lies and fairy tales we share.
Oh,
Aww.
That's a wonderful place. I wonder where that place is.
Maybe the hobbits live there.
There's got to be a place in the universe this must exist in the universe, but...
You mean the galaxy?
The universe,
yes,
not in the galaxy. Oh, maybe in the galaxy. I don't know.
Maybe in the galaxy.
I don't think our fellow aliens from the Milky Way feel that way. They're probably like us. They're probably backwards, too.
Well, another episode.
You think the aliens got it right? The ones that are close by? Yeah, I think you got to go further from. There's something wrong with our black hole. I think the black hole has an effect on the humans here.
Well, we keep maybe because we keep polluting the planet we live on. Maybe our minds are clogged from like dirt that we keep creating. Maybe
planet dirt. Yep.
Planet dirt.
Exactly.
Oh, it's cheaper and more humane to execute people.
I know, that's such a joke.
Lies and fairy tales. And, but what about the insert the horrible crime done? Surely they should be executed. So, again, there's certain egregious acts that one commits in this life that warrants being killed.
Well, some people would say to combat that and that tone would be that if you commit murder, you should be murdered. Some people say that to prevent you from going on and doing more murders.
Yeah, yes, we'll get through that about the deterrence piece of it. But so that last point did catch me though, because I always do have a certain soft spot in my heart for whenever I hear that someone says that like children are being raped, babies are being raped or murdered or killed or burned alive, that does make it challenging to say that person has a right to live after such an egregious act, but the problem is...
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to bring that up later, but I think that, to me, the death penalty is the easy thing. It's kind of like they did a bad crime, and then they're taken out. I mean, they don't really get to suffer. I think they should suffer and have to go through what the family's going to go through. But then that would be...
Because I'm not really for the prison system as it stands.
Yeah, technically it's bad, but I'm saying, if you want to get them back horribly... Just doing the death penalty isn't the worst thing. There's worse things that happen.
This is
not that that's a good thing.
It's a vicious cycle because we keep coming from the place of get back, right? Vengeance.
I know it's too late.
That to me is problematic in nature. Like, and that's I think it's the intention that goes along with this punishment. But we'll keep it moving. I mean, ultimately, where do you stand with it? Do you agree or disagree with it?
Yeah. Also, the thing is, I wanted to mention is that. They didn't mention it, but there's some people that just want to get revenge. Like, they feel it's like, yes, got them back, that kind of thing.
Well, we need to be tough on crime, right? They did the crime, they need to do the time, kind of thing.
So there's some, like, if your family member was like murder or something, you just say, hey, let's get this guy
eye
back.
For an eye.
Teach them a lesson. I don't know if that really makes them feel good, but yeah, that is what it is. Mm-hmm. But in terms of, like, do I agree with it? I never understood how death as a punishment, like I was saying, how's that really right? Does it really teach people a lesson? Is it helping our society at whole? I mean, I always ask myself, is it truly a deterrent? Does it save us money? Are criminals only the criminals put to death and nobody innocent? And I was bringing that up before. Does it really give a relief to the families in the case of murder? Mm-hmm. Do they feel better after this? I don't think so. I think there's like a deeper issue to solve, and death penalty is not really there. That's not helping us. Like, we got to try to prevent this crime, right?
Yeah, I mean, so it's very complex.
The punishment, I don't think that's the real preventer.
Okay, so you guys know, I always say, my background, my family's from Jamaica, so shout out to all my Caribbean folk. And, growing up, I definitely believed in the death penalty, an eye for an eye. If you commit a wrong, then one wrong must be done to you. But thankfully for me, I've changed my ways. I went to law school, became an attorney, and I didn't necessarily focus in crim law in my studies or had an interest in that area. But my small interaction with the various coursework and people in the industry has shown me that there is no such thing as criminal justice. I mean, there's some people that are exonerated and all that, and some people do have good intentions. I'm not coming for them. But the overwhelming majority, I think people understand, especially with like things like the Innocence Project, that there are way too many people in the prison system that shouldn't be in the prison system. There are way too many people who have been killed by the death penalty who've since been exonerated. But guess what? They're already dead. So there's nothing that can be done about that. And when one person dies and they shouldn't have died, that's way too many people. So now I firmly, and for the past, I would say, maybe the past 8+ years, I have firmly been against the death penalty, and I really would like it to go away, because I think that we as a society need to take a step back and look at what's happening in our criminal justice system, what's happening in the prison, and really understand, what do we want to do when people commit crimes? Do we just want to punish them, or quote unquote rehabilitate them? If that is technically under the justice kind of module of what is supposed to be happening, then why don't we make that a reality instead of focusing on the punishment, and understand why people are committing crimes so that we can stop the behavior instead of punishing the end result of what's happening, especially in ways that result in death of innocent people.
Yeah. What is the true cost of the death penalty?
Oh, so funny that you ask. So there's a lot, actually. So according to deathpenalty.org, studies of the California death penalty system, the largest in the U.S., have revealed that a death sentence costs at least 18 times as much as a sentence of life without parole would cost. So as you were suggesting earlier, is it cheaper to kill someone or keep them in prison without parole? It is not cheaper. It is 18 times more expensive. So if you're talking about from a cost perspective, death penalty does not make any fiscal sense. Next, is it a deterrent? If the death penalty would actually deter crime, then the states with death penalty would be safer than those without. In fact, the opposite is true. Regions with the most executions also have the highest murder rates. What's more, in states that have repealed the death penalty, there have been no subsequent spike in murder rates. And in fact, the murder rate has fallen in New York, New Mexico, Illinois, and Connecticut in the years after they repealed the death penalty. So that's interesting. Also in 2012, right, the National Research Council viewed all of the deterrent studies from all sides of the issue and found there was no credible evidence that the death penalty deters murder. So for all that say, if we kill them, they won't kill again or they won't do crime, bull. I call bull. Yes.
I think they're scaring other people.
About the comment that you made earlier about how the family feels about this, and and to be honest, I don't even know if that should be a part of the analysis when dealing with the criminal, because again, that's what is the crime for? Is it for that individual? Is it for others? I think we need to really focus on the individual, but if you want to take into consideration the family members involved, nobody speaks for all victims or survivors, but there has been a scientific study of victim family members that compared the impact of a death sentence versus a life sentence for the murderer, and the study found that higher levels of physical, psychological, and behavioral health for the families, as well as more satisfaction with the criminal justice system when the sentence was life, not death. So the family members, and again, not for everyone, but according to this study, they prefer for them to be in prison than for them to be murdered or executed. And there's a couple of other kind of interesting tidbits of information. Again, go to the link on wokenfree.com.
Well, I knew most of this information already.
Mm-hmm.
I had an idea of it because I actually did my little research on this back in, years ago. So I kind of knew all this information. It's not very surprising to me.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me. I mean, the death penalty is not really going to give people a sense of satisfaction. I know I don't see how it could. How can, especially in the case of the murder, that doesn't make up for what the family experienced.
Yeah, also, I mean, even just from people who've been exonerated, so I think these numbers, probably have been updated since this study or this information was shared, but since the 1970s, over 61 people have been exonerated from death row, and meaning that they were in prison, scheduled, right, to be killed, and then it was proven that they were innocent. That's super scary. And why, guys? Because, how many of them are people that look like you and me, which is even more scarier. Just as a person of color in this country, it scares me. It scares me to think that we are in situations where even when we didn't do something, where our lives are at risk. That's very scary and very upsetting.
And that number probably doesn't include the suicides for people that are on death row.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. I don't know if they include those numbers.
No,
probably not.
They don't talk. That's different. They killed themselves in prison, so that doesn't count.
Oh, That's really
And they could have been
upsetting.
innocent as well. They just couldn't survive prison life. It wasn't, not everybody can take it.
See, that breaks my heart that people,
So
that,
that's what you got to ask yourself is, what is a life worth? Especially a life that someone who hasn't done anything, an innocent life, if people want to say. You want to say the criminals, they're guilty. What about the innocent who may be killed?
What is the
what I
cost
say,
of human life? Wow.
to me, I don't think you can risk even one innocent life
No,
just to,
one is too much. Yeah.
just to try to hurt some wrongdoer. It is
No.
not, that is not right. I don't think that's
Absolutely
right
not.
on any level. You can't do that.
Absolutely
That's
not.
bad.
And
to
also,
even take the chance. I don't
there's-
understand it.
There's also information coming out about officers and people in government who are supposed to be working on the behalf of people who have been known and now being prosecuted for purposely tampering evidence.
Oh, yes,
for
they do that.
purposely putting brown and black boys in prison and on the death penalty. So, like, that's subject to the death penalty. So that's why this is really insane. If you really think about it.
Well, yeah, you've got to really think about it. You can't just take it on face value, which this issue has been for a while.
God, yeah. I mean, but you know what, Woke and Free Nation, we, obviously we feel very strongly and we're on one side of the argument, but we invite you to put in the comments, where do you stand on this issue? If you support the death penalty, please articulate and share with us the reasons why you think it's a must and a need, and what are the benefits of it, because we definitely are struggling to see
And how can we stop innocent people
Yes.
from being executed?
Yes,
too?
where do
A
you
pretty
stand
important
on
issue there.
innocents being killed and saying it's still worth it? Why is that, like, what is the cost of that human life, and why is that okay? But, where do you think we will be in this country 50, 100 years from now? Will we always have the death penalty?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that it's going to be a while, because to me it comes down to what's the root of the problem. I believe it's mental health, and I don't think that can even be taken seriously until we get universal health care. And I don't know when the U.S. is going to get universal health care.
You're
So,
funny.
see, all these things rely on the next universal health care. Once we figure that out, we can actually rehabilitate people, and I think then we could probably prevent these, like, egregious crimes that some feel warrant the death penalty. And it just all starts with that, though. We got to take care of mental health. And how can you take care of mental health if not everybody even is covered? If they don't have, like, medical coverage, they can't seek that out. And then I know we were talking about all the repercussions. There need to be protections in place for certain people's occupation. But once we can really cover mental health, I think that will definitely help. And then another problem that some of these murderers commit is they're doing this while trying to commit like larceny or robbery, or there's some other crime involved. So I think that comes down to, like, the socioeconomics. So in poor neighborhoods, you might have more people doing this, committing crimes that can lead to murder, which in some states will get them the death penalty. So also figuring out our economics and kind of, I guess, that's going to be tough. But I feel that mental health would be the first step to getting rid of the death penalty, actually.
Yeah, I don't think people care enough about mental health, and I think people are too busy, legalizing recreational weed to
That'll
really
probably
wanna
take it away
focus,
too. Then people won't want to commit like bad crimes if they're too weeded up.
If we're all high as a kite.
Yeah, you won't even want to do a crime. You'll just
I don't know.
peace and love.
I was just talking to someone about this. I just don't understand what is wrong with, like, the human brain, and, like, why do people even want to kill? Why do people even want to harm? It's just like, why?
Well, it's all survival
what is
instinct.
wrong with human beings? Like,
Because, well, one reason, like I just said, is
Jeez
in a robbery,
Louise.
is if you want to steal money so you can put bread on your table, you're going to do it with a gun, and you might kill somebody. And that's what happens. Like, it really, that is a thing. Or you might just have to protect your turf.
Lack of need. So ultimately, this comes down to
need.
people not having enough resources and them taking things in their own hands.
That's one
and
set.
committing crime and
One set, and the other set's the mental health people, the people who are,
But we already went through that. It's most people
Not
who
the-
committing crime are not mentally ill like that. Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, not on that.
I mean, maybe they haven't been diagnosed, but, like, if you look at the
They-
stats, mentally ill people
I know
are
what
not
I'm saying.
likely.
All right, maybe it's not a good description, but there's something
Like,
wrong with
emotionally
their
disturbed
thinking
people,
process.
yeah.
Maybe they need a therapist. Maybe they don't have a mental illness, but maybe there's something that's happening in
a
their life
disturbance,
that they don't
yeah.
get to talk about. Maybe they're being super bullied, because I know there's kids that are bullied and they might not have a mental health issue, but they are being bullied a lot, and that leads them to do things like this.
Yeah.
To do, like, really bad crimes. So When I say mental health, I mean I consider therapy a part of that. So just maybe well-being, we'll say.
Yeah.
No, but not necessarily you have a mental illness. That's not what
Gotcha.
I meant.
I mean, quickly, I would say ultimately, I think we will have the death penalty as long as we have conservatives, as long as we have Second Amendment lovers, people who enjoy the death of
Really?
others.
The Second Amendment doesn't go hand in hand with
It
death
doesn't go
penalty.
hand in hand, but I just feel like people who are more likely to say, yes, we should have our guns, are, I think, not all the time, because obviously you support the Second Amendment, but you don't support the death penalty. But I do think that
Yeah, I think they're
gun-toting
separate.
conservatives probably are like, yes, we should have the death penalty. They committed the crime. They should be punished. Rah, 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 right? And it's like these linear arguments that don't make sense in the effed up world that we live in. Like, if the law worked and operated exactly perfectly, then yes, anyone on track for the capital punishment would be rightfully for that, right? But we don't have a perfect world, nor do we have a perfect criminal justice system. So I don't know. I just think people enjoy killing others, and like we do it in our video games. Why the hell aren't we doing it on our lives? I mean, it just, I don't know. It just seems like human beings are effed. Like I don't know.
Even though you saw that other countries got rid of the death penalty though too. Or like I mentioned earlier, Venezuela, Brazil, places have done it, so I don't think it's impossible.
I don't think it's impossible, but in this country, I don't know. I think we enjoy death too much because we love to go to other countries and kill people. Like we just love death. Like it's just in everything. How many movies come at, like we're literally obsessed with it.
Let's
not
get ahead of ourselves. We're all gonna die. I mean,
well, yes, we are all gonna die, but we don't have to die at the hands of each other.
The end of this story is not that different than the next. Like we all have a similar chapter.
That's why I don't understand
Our final
why
chapter
we're
is the
so
same.
excited to take each other's lives. I mean, it's like we are all going down the same
because then
yellow brick road.
It's like playing a video game, right? You control that book. You're taking control of the story.
And,
you're not
and
letting
why
it
do we
run
want
itself.
this, and why is that so important in this country? Why?
Yeah.
Why, guys?
Interesting. We want to control other people, yet let them have their freedom. Okay.
But there is no freedom here.
Freedom for all, unless you do this, then no freedom.
And freedom in what context and what privilege? Like,
Yeah.
there's no freedom.
Okay, you get freedom, but you can't afford freedom.
It's
Sorry.
like freedom according to the Matrix. Like, it's that kind of freedom. It's not real freedom.
Here we go, yo. Here we go, yo. So what's the scenario? It's scenario time. Scenario 1. Jolene lost her sister in a botched robbery at a local beauty salon where they both were getting their hair done. Luckily, the murderer was caught a few days later and taken off the streets without bail. This state still uses the electric chair, and some of her family really want to see the murderer pay for his crimes. When Jolene talks to the prosecutor, should she push for the death penalty? Will this serve justice for the family?
Were you listening to some Dolly Parton, Khalil? Jolene, oh, Jolene.
How could you say that? How could you say that about me? You know I'm not a country boy.
Dolly Parton.
You know I'm not a country boy.
Shout out to Dolly.
Come on now.
Oh my goodness.
What's that done about?
Exactly, Jay. Exactly. Our dog just literally gave the answer, guys. I hope you were. It really, you got the breath of what he said there. This is interesting. Again, if I'm answering as me, I think. Like, both answers suck, right? A life in prison without parole means horror for that person because what happens in our prison system is crazy. Guys, Oz was crazy, and that was a fictional depiction of it. Like, I can't even with the realness. And then the death penalty is horror as well because it's painful and it's not cool and it's expensive.
Well,
I
is
mean,
the lethal injection painful? I don't know.
Well, the idea of someone taking your life seems painful to me. But, she should go for, I guess, if she's the representative of the family, then she should go for what the family is overarchingly.
Oh, wow. So she can't make her own decisions.
She can make her own decision, but then she'll have the wrath of her family. So she has to decide. Does she want to
You're
deal?
right about that.
Yeah, she'll have to decide. Does she want to deal with giving her opinion, wherever she stands on it, or does she want to deal with her family? And if she disagrees with them, how they will treat her thereafter. It's up to her. You should live your life, and whatever pain tolerance tolerance you have, and you can put up with the bull. I mean, I always say choose you over, familial discord, because your life is too short to be trying to live for Auntie and Nana and this. But this is a rough question. What do you think?
I would plead for a special type of penalty, so it would definitely be life in prison. But what would have to happen is, at least every week, the prisoner would have to write a letter of how he's sorry for what he did to the sister that he killed. So once every week, he's going to write this letter and he's going to mail it off.
You want to read that? You think?
I'm not going to read it. No, I just want him to do that every week. Like, make him do that. That's the thing. It's a requirement. Make him know his actions.
Like in Harry Potter, is the words going to show up on his arm, bleeding?
No.
Repeatedly.
This is a real thing, too. You know, this actually happened to somebody. Somebody did this, and the person was really upset with what they did. They kind of, repented and became all nice and whatever, but this actually did happen. I thought that was an interesting idea. Make them think about it every day.
If I was going to put someone in prison and not give them the death penalty, then I would say that, if death penalty didn't exist anymore, the punishment really should be the person, whatever they hated them most.
You just had a choice. You could say you want the death penalty or not.
Yeah.
It does exist, but why are you saying it doesn't exist?
Well, I'm just saying, if we lived in a world without the death penalty, wouldn't it be interesting to understand whatever that person's I don't want to say fears are, but things that upset them.
So you want to cut them open, look at their brain, start plugging electrodes into it.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Hello, fatties.
Oh, no, stop.
Time for dinner.
Please stop.
That's pretty crazy, Tosh.
What I'm saying is I don't know. Okay, say this person hated school, so they then have to go and get a doctorate. It's stuff like that where it's or in my case, if someone was you have to work out for 6 hours, I would rather the death penalty.
Oh, you have a choice then between death penalty and then something you hate?
Yeah. And it's stuff like that. But that's not, it's, the whole thing seems childish, actually.
Oh, because if we're going to talk about alternatives, I would just say do it like the Romans and have a Colosseum. But instead of a Colosseum, have an island. You drop them on the island, no weapons, no anything. You put poisonous animals on there.
Hunger Games, yeah.
Similar to that.
Excellent.
Hunger Games wasn't the first, but yeah, similar like that where it's a free-for-all. That's what I would do that.
So here we
Technically,
go.
Escape
Capitol
from. You know what
District 12.
You know what already did that? Escape from New York did that. You didn't. I don't know if you saw the movie, but that's that same idea. This island for the criminals, but that was kind of it didn't really work out, but it's interesting. Scenario 2: Belinda is a criminal prosecutor with a near perfect shriek. They say after this case, she's a shoo-in for the DA's office. The defendant looks to be getting the death penalty if she wins the case. But the prosecution does not have a lot of evidence proving the charges. Should Belinda try to win this case at all costs for her career and risk killing an innocent man? Or is it fine because the defendant is probably guilty? That's not a loaded question. No, that's a fair question.
Oh, Belinda. Oh, Jolene.
Yeah.
Jolene.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Dolly.
Oh, come on now.
Okay, well, obviously she should do the right, decent human thing, and she's gonna have to muck up her record as a prosecutor, because if she doesn't know beyond a reasonable doubt, and cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt, that this person, rather cannot prove it, whether she knows it is irrelevant, but if she cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt, the highest standard there is, that this person is guilty of the crime, then sit down, Belinda. But, if Belinda is more interested in being a phenomenal prosecutor, then she's doing what so many have done before her.
Yeah.
And is
not the
sending
first, right?
an innocent person on death row.
She wouldn't be the first.
No, she wouldn't. Oh, Belinda.
And unfortunately, not the last.
And no, she wouldn't. What do you think she should do?
Yeah, she's definitely got to let the truth be known.
Yes.
Don't make it all about you. Because guess what happens? Like I said, everybody has the same ending. and that's death. So she shouldn't be bringing somebody's death early. That's not her job.
It's interesting because it's like
Not
it
her
makes me
job.
wonder about karma, and when people do that, like then they wonder when they have like throat cancer, like what happened. Like, and
But hopefully
like,
you don't believe in karma, and hopefully it doesn't exist, because
it's
hopefully
like,
you don't
or
get
your,
bad
like,
stuff towards
prostate
you.
exploded. It's like I wonder.
But you'll say, I don't know why that happened. What did I do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or like Belinda's,
I
youngest
see.
daughter dies. It's horrible things like that where it's like, I wonder why this happened. And it's like, maybe because all of our decisions matter and you can't just walk around and mess up and be like, like, no, they matter. But that's another actual episode.
Yeah.
So we will
That's
hit
a
that
good
another
thing
point.
to think about, karma. Scenario 3. Oswald is in custody and charged with a crime he did not do. If he admits to the crime, he could serve a life sentence in prison. If he goes to court, though, it's possible he could be sentenced to death. If you were Oswald, what would you do?
Oh, Lord.
This is a real thing, too.
Damn it. God. And I'm assuming in this factual scenario that if he goes to court, it's not going to be a fair kind of process.
Well, it's a court-appointed attorney. That's all he has.
Oh, gosh. So he doesn't
That's
even
what
have
I'll
a
say.
paid attorney. Okay. Yeah. And the jury is not going to be...
No idea.
Yeah.
It's up in the air.
So it's 12
It
white.
might not be a jury of
white men.
peers.
But,
Oswald himself may be white. We don't know what he is, though. But he's not in a good situation here either way.
Yeah. Okay.
This isn't a blue-collar crime.
I would say for preservation of life purposes, it might make sense for him to just admit to the crime that he didn't do. That way he can at least be alive for sure. And then get in touch with organizations that work to exonerating and try to fight it after.
Can you say duress or anything? Or no? Not really.
Well,
if you
I'm
admit
not
it.
going to talk about legal stuff on here, but I will say that, like, I think it might be a better play to just do that, and then that way you're alive, and then you can get in touch with organizations who can help get you out, versus potentially getting in another situation that results in your death before you're exonerated. So that's what I argue.
I would say that he should go to court. Because I just don't want it on
take
the
the
books.
chances. Okay.
Because I'm thinking bigger than him. I don't want it on the books that he just, like, admitted to the crime and he's innocent. Like, I don't know. To me, that's just messed up. Because that's just going to be a win for the prosecution.
I mean, and technically, they
that.
don't usually execute that quickly. Like, usually
But yeah, you have a lot of time.
Have some time.
You do have time.
Potentially,
I'd rather him take
I know,
the
because I
chance.
wouldn't. I mean, I know I personally wouldn't admit to something I didn't do.
Yeah, I couldn't do that.
But even if
crazy.
it meant dying, like, oh well,
Yeah.
I didn't do it. So
What is meant to be will be, as they say,
exactly.
right?
Yeah. So, I mean, on a principle, you should never have to admit to something you didn't do, but yeah, I mean, I guess I changed my answer.
Oh, you changed it, so now you're going to go to
because,
court.
yeah, they usually don't execute that quickly, so you do have
you have
some
a lot of
time.
That's why it costs so much.
Some people have lost their life and they didn't have enough time. But
how much time do you need? Yeah,
I know. Because sometimes it could be, well, like that Hurricane movie, that boxer, whatever, that fighter, he was in there for like 20-odd years. It was based on a real story or whatever. So, I mean, I don't think was he on death row? I can't remember if he was on death row or not. Denzel did that movie, but
I mean, that'd be that's a real long time. I mean, it might be possible. I don't know.
Yeah. All right, Oswald. It'll be okay.
You got to tough it up and go to court.
Potentially die.
Early.
Indeed.
Early, we'll say, yeah. Potentially die early.
In an orange suit. Oh, gosh.
Well, what if they give you a tuxedo?
Indeed. With steak. It better be from Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
I don't know. Is that real? Do they...
Their last meal, yeah. I don't know. I think
Can you request anything, or is that a joke? Like, I don't even know if that's real.
I don't even want to know.
You're not going to research that. Yeah, that's... If anybody knows, they can leave that in the comments.
Put that in the comments, guys. It's too upsetting to me. I can't. Like, I mean, imagine, like, someone orders, like, Popeyes.
You know what I would do? I would order, like, 1,000 buffets, so they have to keep serving it so I could prolong the time.
I don't think,
you can't like cheat it.
The clock goes out at a certain
It's like
point.
you have this meal and it has to be within this range.
I
All right, so you
cannot.
can't do play any like funny jokes or anything to try to extend it. Oh well, no tricks there.
We are at that time again. This was a hell of an episode. Coming to the end of our 68th episode of Woke and Free. Knew you were doing that nonsense again. I go up, you go down. Remember the order. That sounded weird. Guys, don't think something different there.
You're saying some weird stuff here. I don't know if I can co-sign on that.
Larly.
Reject it.
Oh gosh, this is quite the episode talking all about whether the death penalty is right or wrong. Very challenging, very tough subject, not because of our answers, but because of the different scenarios and the different lives that are really at stake at this issue. Guys, put in your comments, what did you feel about this episode? Did you agree with us, disagree with us? What are things that you'd want to talk about regarding this? Should we have a part 2, part 3, all of that good stuff? Put it in the comments on wokenfree.com. And I always ask, and you know what's going to happen, will I leave you hanging for what our next episode is going to be all about? Drum roll, please.
On our next episode, we will be talking about whether New Year's resolutions are a good thing. Make sure you follow us on social media to follow along in the conversation, and make sure you tune in next week for Woken Free Wednesday to join the conversation at wokenfree.com.
If you want to be a guest on the show, submit a topic for an upcoming episode, or just share how you're feeling about our episodes, if you're in your feelings, all that good stuff, go to our Contact Us page at wokenfree.com. That is WOKENFREE.com. Also, if you feel like hitting us up on social media, you can easily find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Woken Free, guys. Woke and free.
If you didn't already subscribe, please do, share the episode, and make sure you come back to join the conversation every Wednesday for Woken Free Wednesdays. Remember, Woken Free is more than a podcast, it is a way of life. Until next time.